This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast.
Time for school.
Hey, school success makers. Today we're joined by my new friend Timothy Wong out of the great state of California. And I'm telling you, I continue to find amazing people that I get to interview and have on this podcast that I get to learn from, that you get to learn from. Tim is one of those, of course. He's heading up a great Christian school there. And I'm hoping you guys can pull a ton of resources, a ton of things from this episode as much as I did. Tim's a great guy. So please enjoy this next episode of the School Success Podcast. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of California, Tim Wong, who is the head of school of Los Gatos Christian School in, of course, Los Gatos, California. He is brand new there just this year, and he has a great background in Christian education, but he has just gotten started there a few months ago. And I'm excited to hear from him, hear what he's already been up to there, how the first few weeks of school have gone, and just learn from him and his knowledge and what he's done in Christian education for so many years. So I don't want to take any thunder away from him anymore. I'm going to pass it off to him to introduce himself. So Tim, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hey, thank you, Mitchell. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's going to be a fun time, man. And I always start off the podcast with the same question typically, which I go, hey, if I was ever to visit Los Gatos, California, I know you just got there, a few months ago. What are we going to do for fun there? What is something you're like, you got to do this when you come to Los Gatos?
Yeah, no, Los Gatos is a really cool community. It's right outside, or it's actually inside of Silicon Valley, but nestled up right against the Santa Cruz Mountains. So typically what I love to do is take someone towards the mountains. And if you're into hiking, biking, or any of that type of outdoor activities, very cool. Also, we got a cool couple of nice little downtown areas and parks. So that's fantastic right here in the city.
Okay. I love it. I'm assuming it's fairly hot there because I think you're about, an hour or two from south of San Francisco, I think as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're about a full hour, no traffic. So
no traffic. Yeah, I got you. All right.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, congrats to being at this new school. And I would love, as kind of just dive in, I want to get a little backstory on you. So sharing kind of how you got to where you are today, your background in education and Christian schools, and how you got to Los Gatos Christian School.
Yeah. Well, first off, I never thought I'd be in education. And so always careful about saying what you're not going to go towards. I didn't like school a whole lot. I went through public school all my life, and I couldn't wait to get out. And I was studying business at Berkeley. Actually, I think a big explanation of everything that happened was I actually found Jesus at UC Berkeley while studying business. So yeah, kind of unusual. When that happened, I just realized how fast the world comes at all of us. And I could have easily made some really poor choices while I was at Berkeley. So when I got out, I did go into business for a while. Then I got approached to take on a position with administration at a small Christian school. And I first said no, because I knew how little it paid, how challenging it was. But as I prayed about it, I was just really wrestling with God about it. And the next day I woke up and I just asked my wife, or just told her, I said, hey, I really think this has all the qualities and attributes I'm really looking for at this stage of my life. But I just don't know how we're going to pay the bills. And so she, like an awesome woman that she is, Lynn said, well, just go ahead and take it, and we'll do it until we can't pay the bills. So that just unleashed me to, try it out. And after a few years, I found out I really loved it. Went on, got my master's degree, served at that school, which was up in the Mid-Peninsula area, if anyone's familiar with the Bay Area. It was in San Mateo. Did that for about 9 years. Then I had an opportunity to serve out in Vail, Colorado for a couple of years at Christian schools out there. Then came back down to Monterey, California, and served at Trinity Christian High School for about 12 years. And then I took a position up at San Francisco City Impact, helped an inner city urban school up there. Always wanted to do that. Did that for about a year. And then just most recently served 2.5 years up at Sacramento for Capital Christian School, where I was a head of school up there. And then came down here to Los Gatos Christian School. So quite a bit of, and as you said, this is 26 years in the making. So I've been enjoying Christian education for that long. I did end up getting my second master's degree. But I think what my most unique experience has been helping 4 different schools move into 6 new locations. So through that, really had a lot of opportunities to, I guess, leverage my business background and also leadership qualities, I think, that I've learned along the way to help different communities really adapt and thrive in changing environments.
Man, awesome story, awesome background. Obviously, you love education, as you just shared, and it sounds like it from your background and your history. And I love the interesting part about the helping these schools into new locations is now, if we haven't even talked about the school you're at right now, but is that something that they are in need of, or something that you're seeing already that you need to do for Los Gatos?
Yeah, it's just so interesting. Cultures play such a big part, and I love creating or helping create a campus culture. And I think for every community, there's a uniqueness, and really drawing that out and kind of diving deep into that and helping them articulate that to the people around them, I think has been what's been really powerful. Whether you're a big school like Capital Christian is, or a small school like Trinity Christian is, everyone is unique in their own way. And I think everything comes with its strengths and weaknesses. So it is something that I really enjoy doing. And I think more importantly, it's just all the lives that are touched because of that growth process that takes place when a community becomes healthy and vibrant.
Very good. Well, let's dive into the school a little bit. Give me a little background. I know you're new to the school, but let's just, before we dive into some of the questions I had, just the background on the school itself of Los Gatos Christian School and how it got to be where it is today and how old it is.
Yeah, Los Gatos Christian School has been around for 40 plus years. I think it was started in 1977. It's part of currently Venture Christian Church. It's a ministry of a church. So, I've served both independent schools and kind of church-sponsored schools, and this is a church-sponsored school. We are a preschool through 8th grade. And so, we serve quite a strong community here. They come from all over Silicon Valley and even from the East Bay. So we have quite a few people coming into this area. And yeah, it's a really neat community to be part of. So I'm really glad to be here.
Awesome. I love it. Well, let's dive right into some questions I had about the school. And again, I know I've referenced it a couple of times. I know you've only been there a few months as the time of this recording, but I think you have a fresh perspective of the school being in your position that you are. And so let's kind of see how some of these questions go. And first one, just kind of diving into the challenges. So you're coming into this school. Are there kind of some challenges that the school is up against and why they look to bring you on board in the first place for your leadership and your background that they're dealing with? So maybe just a few of the challenges, but not just woe is me, here are the challenges we're up against, but also how are you guys planning on combating them or currently already combating those challenges?
Yeah, no, great question. I think when I say about our challenges, I think we're not unique. But I think right now there is definitely a drain of talent from Christian education in general. Education overall, we've seen a definitely decrease in the number of teachers that are staying with the profession. And then when we look at specifically what we're looking for in teachers, that they are actually been transformed by the love and grace of Christ, and that they actually understand what leadership looks like in the classroom, and they have really strong, EQ. They relate well with the students and with the parents, and they have all the qualities that we're looking for in a team member. You just start shrinking down the applicant pool already. Then you throw together, well, the cost of living here in Silicon Valley is one of the highest in the world. So we're definitely not attracting new people, not so much. I mean, if I'm getting a college graduate student who has like some level of student debt loans, and I'm going like, hey, come to live here if they're not from this area. It's pretty hard to attract. And then we pay them a teacher salary. So talent is really hard to find. So we've been really intentional about leveraging the talent that we do have and trying to create as much efficiency within our organization as possible. So we've kind of strengthened our infrastructure. We've kind of built up more leadership. We've approach more problem solving and creativity from a more of a collaborative team model, and then really share transparently with our community what our strategies are. So I would say that's probably our biggest, I guess, transformation is really looking at how we do things and our leadership structure.
Well, you mentioned one of the ones that was on my mind already for challenges, which the expense of living in Silicon Valley and area. And I even just before we started recording, I was like, I wonder how much houses are in Los Gatos, California. And I Googled it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So like, how does that work? I mean, again, I don't, and you don't have to obviously share it on the podcast, but like a teacher's salary, I'm sure it's more than a school in some of the other like states of our country, but how does that work? I mean, it is expensive from what I saw. I'm sure there's still, apartments and some rentals and stuff, but man, like that is a hard one to navigate, just like you mentioned. So how are you guys navigating that specifically? How do you help the teachers with that?
Yeah, we're looking at different strategies for that. Certainly, one of the things that we're addressing head on is our need to increase our compensation package for it. I know we're even exploring possibility of housing and all that. Those are all things that are on the table looking down the road. But you're right, so much of it is finding people that are very missional oriented. I mean, they come with a real high purpose. And so there are those out there. They're very few for sure. So a lot of the people that we have currently are people that are here. And that is a challenge of this whole area. And I think when we talk about the disappearing of the middle class, unfortunately, it is true in these very pricey areas. So that is definitely something not just as educators we need to wrestle with, but boy, as a society as a whole.
Man, have there been any challenges with just enrollment in general? Are you guys, do you have capacity to get, let's say, 100 more students, but you don't have those filled yet? So maybe the financial burden of that is a challenge, or are you guys kind of good with enrollment numbers right now?
Yeah, luckily we've been very fortunate. We've been hitting our enrollment numbers, and I think depending upon where you are, private education overall has definitely seen an uptick a bit. What's been really interesting is the number of new families that are being introduced to private education, and especially private Christian education. So that's been a really neat conversation. And I think it's really important for especially private schools, to have some sort of onboarding process for parents to understand what the culture is like and to help them get connected in the community as well.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, I think it's a perfect segue into the next section, giving you a chance to brag. So there's got to be things you've seen already being there a few months going, man, like they're doing a really good job with this, or this is happening. That's really cool. So give me a chance to brag about the school for a little bit. What's going really good there?
Yeah, I think, one thing that's always been really strong with Los Gatos Christian School has been the relationships with students and amongst students and with teachers. We build a very warm but challenging environment for our students. And I think in this day and age with COVID and mental health issues, we've definitely seen how important, and parents are recognizing the importance of that. So that is unique, but I would say that's not unique to small private Christian schools. I think the big thing for us is also the opportunities that the students have to grow and be challenged. If you feel very confident and secure in being able to even fail, not be the best, because, we're in such a performance-oriented world today. Like there's metrics for everything. It's ridiculous. And then I can't even imagine if I was a young person growing up today. I'd be YouTubing everything. I'd be comparing myself right and left. I'd be so ridiculously insecure. I'm already insecure as it is as an adult, and I didn't grow up in a digital age. So when I sit down and talk with the young students, I realize more and more that their identity is so critical for them to not only know who they are, but whose they are. And, that's reaffirmed by the people that you surround yourself with. It's reaffirmed by people that you really value. And we introduce them to the loving, Heavenly Father that knows them, sees them, and loves them.
Love it. I love it. What else? What else is going good? Sports, academics, anything else that you want to be like, man, this is pretty awesome here. I like what's going on there.
Yeah, I think, sports is always an important thing. I think oftentimes it becomes a thing that we sometimes overemphasize, but, we have a good, solid sports program. We're hoping, I think the one thing that we continue to do is just give our students, more and more opportunities to develop their skills at a young age. With a great, PE program and an athletic program. We look at developing our Idea Lab, which is very much STEAM oriented. And we're introducing that not only to our students, but hopefully just to be a magnet in our community, being right here in Silicon Valley. So I've always been a big proponent of technology. Helped start one of the first one-to-one program up in San Mateo back in '97 with Microsoft and Toshiba when they were big in the days. So I always knew that we were never going to, quote, get ahead of it, but we definitely want to ride that wave. Now that technology is so prevalent, the hard part is, how do we actually realize even the limitations, and that there's both digital learning and analog learning, and we have to really leverage the strength of both worlds. And I think today it's really important for us as academic anthropologists to really study how humans really learn, as opposed to thinking that we are content, what is it, reporting content. We're not, we're actually curating content today.
Do you see, well, let's flip it actually, for the school going forward, where do you kind of see the trajectory of this school? Is the planning to add on to this building, build a building, move, grow? Like how do you envision, I don't know if you've even gotten to that point yet, of kind of like that vision setting for the school where you guys kind of see yourself in the next 5 and 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think, being fairly new here, I think our biggest thing is building a very healthy culture, making sure that we have great communication with our stakeholders, helping invite them into our story here of really preparing, young hearts and minds to really be leaders in the future. And what does that look like? And so part of the process is kind of challenging us is, hey, if we could do this, this is what we could do. And definitely already in the conversation is the idea of building a gym, building another like exclusive middle school wing, all those things that really kind of get the community excited about, the direction that we're heading. We've got the foundation, we've got the priceless piece that, money can't buy. And that's all the teachers and staff. Those are really the things that money can't buy. But boy, if we added on to that, what could we do and the impact that we would make in this community?
Well, you've mentioned culture a couple of times for something that you really wanted to instill and to grow, and that was really important to you, which obviously I agree culture is extremely important when it comes to businesses and schools and all that. I would love to unpack that a little bit for those that are listening. What are some strategies that you've put in place at the schools that you've worked at, and specifically now Los Gatos, that you're like, hey, these are some of the things I do to build culture in a school, that somebody, like actionable steps that somebody could also do at their school?
Yeah. Someone said, culture is that invisible force that really helps an organization grow. And you can feel it. You can feel it, but you sometimes have a hard time putting your hand on it. When I was at Trinity Christian for 12 years, we moved that school twice. One of the times we moved it was into a car dealership. That was really cool. If anyone knows Monterey, it's like it was right next to Dennis and Menace Park, right across from Wharf number 2. And that was extremely fun for me to see come together. And we saw the culture come together in such a unique way. I would say I did a lot of things back then intuitively. I had people on my team that got it, caught it, and were ambassadors of it. And as with all schools, you go through changes, you lose a few key people. And at least I would say that under my watch, I actually saw our culture change to a point it didn't fit me anymore. And I'm like, going, gosh, how did that happen? It happened over my watch, And I became very much of even more of a student of understanding what culture is. And one of the unique opportunities I had when I went up to Capital Christian up in Sacramento was to really apply all the things that I learned. And I would shout out to Patrick Lencioni. He was an author and writer of The Advantage, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and Ideal Team Player. So look those things up. But when I read his stuff, I was going, oh my goodness, this is the stuff I've been doing. And I didn't know it was research backed. I was just kind of doing it intuitively. And so when we went up to Sacramento, I had a chance to apply so much of his materials to our team, had our team go through it, we articulated and wrote down and really had our values drive our organization. And, and my role as head of school is to really be the protector of that culture. To kind of, again, culture is a fragile ecosystem that you really have to identify the predators. Anyone that looks at our world today, you understand how fragile ecosystems are. There's a balance to everything. You want it to be healthy. You want it to be thriving. And it's one of those things where it was so interesting to see the culture change to become very healthy up at Capitol. And I'm really so glad and very grateful to have the opportunity to serve there. That is something that I firmly believe in. It really what brings us joy when we're in a healthy culture. We look forward to going to work every day because, we know what to expect. We know that it's a place that it's worth fighting for.
And how quickly culture can be destroyed and be tweaked, if the wrong person gets hired or the wrong person's in the role. Has that ever had to come up in these past years where you brought somebody on and you realize maybe fairly quickly, or maybe it was a few months in or something, you're like, man, this person's not the right fit because they're clashing with the culture that we've built? Has that happened? Have you seen that happen firsthand?
Oh, absolutely. I've made those decisions myself. And I just try not to repeat mistakes. I just try to learn from every mistake. And I think that's what the challenge is for those of you who are leaders out there. There's not a perfect training or education to be where we are at today. Sometimes we take it on the chin. And as leaders, we have to own it. We have to own our mistakes. We have to be willing to get up and fight again, because that's the whole idea, is that when you're called to a position of leadership and you're serving others, it's not about us. It really isn't. It's about serving others and trying to do our role to the best of our abilities. And sometimes, we have to learn lessons the hard way. But the question is, are we continuously learning? Are we continuously growing? And if you're not growing, then you know what? You're probably not in the right role. And so that's a challenge to anyone in leadership. Like, we got to always be growing. And it's, and let's just be honest, as humans, we're prone to be complacent. We're prone to be comfortable. How many educators have you talked to, and I've talked to, that said, man, I've been doing this for 30 years. This is the way I do it. To me, those are toxic words because they've stopped growing. And so I just want to make sure that I don't make the same mistake. And I will confess, I'm prone to do that. I catch myself, but I think that's really important for us as leaders because of the responsibilities that we have. Jesus said, like, the no student's going to be greater than their teacher, right? So if we want students that are teachable, humble, hungry, we have to actually be that. If you're disappointed at your students, take a look at yourself and see if you're not the reason why, right? So, those are just words that I've learned and I'm trying to live out every day. And I've got a team around me that understands my strengths and my weaknesses. But we're doing life together, and we're doing life together with our students. And it's, again, this is what makes it special, is that I want our students to understand that once they're part of this family, we're family for life. And I think somehow we've lost that in education, because people really do need to know, how much you care for them, right? Just that whole adage, right? And but living that, I know it's tough every day. We definitely get that.
Yeah, man. I wanted to mention a couple things, because you mentioned Dennis the Menace Park earlier. And I actually know that park only because we did a road trip last year. My wife and my son and I, we went to that park, and it was one of the greatest parks we've ever been to. And I was just like, this is incredible. The humongous slide with the rollers on it that I went down, and there was some cool, the rock formations that they had built in there. So when you mentioned, I was like, I actually know where he's talking about. And I don't remember a car dealership, but I know Dennis the Menace Park. So that is very, very cool. So Monterey was a beautiful, beautiful area. Very expensive area as well. You like picking these really expensive areas to work at schools, it sounds like there, Tim.
Yeah, I like the challenge. I think as educators, we're always looking at, how do we make the biggest impact? And I love going to places where I feel like the community is looking for schools that can help their children engage and almost redeem kind of like our culture today. We're such in a polarized world. The reason I went up to Sacramento was I really felt we had a strong diversity in this private school, which is so unusual. And, boy, how cool would it be for our students to be in a classroom with diversity there? Like, you actually learn to be as one because you know people. You actually love people from different backgrounds. You actually hear different perspectives, and you don't criticize, you don't villainize people. You love them through your differences. And if we could do that in the classroom, we have a chance of doing that in the world. And so that's what we continuously lean into in all our communities. And so, here in Los Gatos, we don't have as much diversity, So we're going to go out, and part of my goal is with these middle school students, especially, is to send them out and serve and engage and understand different cultures and different worlds. Take them into the inner cities, take them into different countries. We're going to be that, I guess you say, portal, but also prepare them to love the worlds that they go into and find out, how, that we have more things in common than we have differences. And this is where I get so disappointed in what we see in the media today, because it paints a picture that I don't believe is accurate. But if we want to, we'll believe that lie, that we're actually have so many polarizing issues that we cannot possibly agree on. Whereas really, we actually have more in common than we think. I love for our kids to experience that first and foremost before they step into the ring, that they already know that this is not, how we are made, So anyway, that's my hope.
I love it. I love it. Well, a couple final questions for you, but you mentioned you guys are K-8. Is there any desire to be a high school as well and be a full K-12? Is there anything in the playing cards for that coming down the pipeline?
That's a great question. People ask me, like, how did I actually get introduced to Los Gatos? And the funny thing was, I was actually introduced to them 10 years ago when they were going through some real strong growth. And I think at that time, they were thinking about doing a high school. I had told them all my life, and my history is, I have a strong heart towards high schoolers. And so, so it's like all of a sudden I'm doing K-8. And in fact, I even, in some people's mind, I actually changed from being head of school of a big preschool through 12th grade. And my person over at Carter Baldwin said, the search firm just kind of said, Tim, you don't want to take a step back, because all of a sudden, and I went, I think I'm taking a step towards, because here's the thing that I've seen. The world is coming so hard and fast to our kids today that I do think that we need to beef up the middle school. And I will tell you transparently, for many years, I thought the middle school was just simply like kind of purgatory. Like, hey, just hang out over there. Don't get yourself in trouble. Wait till you actually step into the real ring here in high school. But because the world is coming so hard and fast at our students, and they just get, because of these screen time, they're getting all these messages of what they should be looking like, what they should be buy, what they should eat, what they should do. It's just crazy. And so that's part of the reason why I really wanted to develop not just a college prep program, not just a life preparatory program, not even just a world-class program. I want to be part of building a life-giving program to these young students. I want them to experience the abundant life, and so that they actually have that to compare to, as opposed to what the world is telling them that they need to be. So right now, no, I don't think we have that as being the primary aspiration. Certainly I would welcome it. It's always, we just want to serve. But right now our focus is really developing this K-8 program to be life-giving and be truly something that other people would look at and say, wow, the type of students that you're producing and graduating from this program is amazing.
Love it. I love it. Well, as we look to wrap up the episode, I always want to end with the same final question I ask every guest, which is giving them a chance to share a piece of advice that they would share with any of their school leaders that are listening. You got some good background, you got some good stuff, you've shared some good nuggets, but if you had to share one with everybody, what would that be?
Gosh, if you're an educator out there and you want to lead people with a servant's heart, I would encourage you to prioritize trust. Trust is such an important thing to have with your team, with your students, with your families. And it's hard to build. It's hard to maintain. And it's so easy to lose. So easy. I think about like a credit card, like you build your credit rating by just making small purchases, paying on time. No one ever notices that. But man, it pays off when you get that big purchase. But man, you can wipe out your credit score with one stupid move, right? And when you do that, because we are all stupid at heart and we're human, and I've done that, you have to know how to build back up your trust. And so I want all of our leaders to consider, where is your trust level with your stakeholders? And if you're afraid to ask it, it's probably not where you want it to be. So, there's a lot of different methods to build that trust. Most of them are uncomfortable, but I can tell you that it's worth it. Just as a quick story, one of the things that I noticed going to one of my previous schools was that there's a real strong mistrust with leadership. And so to turn it around, I did a survey. Yeah, most people would go like, oh, that's okay. Well, okay, who'd you hire? And I just did it on SurveyMonkey, just sent it out. And I had a lot of rate this, and a lot of tell me what you're thinking. So I did the unthinkable afterwards. I actually published what everyone said. Of course, I, crossed off the 4-letter words and, took out personal names and everything. But I actually published it on a PDF and shared it with everyone and then commented on it. And, it didn't solve the trust issue, but I think it actually showed where we wanted to be accountable and that we are going to be a transparent organization. And so if that feels uncomfortable for you, it did for me as well. But I kept the end in mind, and that is, it's a process to get to where I want it to be. And I want to make sure that people knew that their feedback was really important. And it really takes on that role of being a shepherd that Jesus talks about. And I really, again, I look at the great leadership of Jesus, and he talks about how many times a shepherd needs to know his flock. So if you don't know the people that you serve, you're just, as he called, you're just a hire. You're just doing it for the work. And we have a lot of those people out there, but what we don't have is we don't have servant leaders that are willing to lay down their life for the people that they serve.
Man, that one was a good one. The trust and everything about that. And you made me think of kind of a story as well. When you mentioned the SurveyMonkey thing, I had a friend of mine who was going, man, I don't know why. And he's a friend from church who was saying, like, I don't know why we don't have as many students coming now. I thought there'd be more, and I don't know why. What do you guys think? And he started asking all the, the leaders and the volunteers questions. And I was like, did you ask the kids? Like, did you ask the students why they're not coming back? And it was just kind of one of those things. He looked at me, he goes, no. He goes, I didn't. And he hadn't even thought of it. And he goes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to send out a text to everybody, or like with a survey and all that, to ask him. I was like, because why are you asking me? I'm not the one that's not coming. Like, what? Maybe there'll be some commonality that'll come out of it where you'll go, oh, okay, they don't like this part of the, whatever it is. So going right to the source, which is exactly what you did, is like, well, let's figure out, like, instead of going, let me hire an outside consultancy and see, hey, can you figure out why my staff is not as engaged or not liking it? That's like, you did exactly what I would have done, and what I would have suggested every school to do is go to the source, hit it head on. I actually like that you shared the results with them. I think that shows, good transparency, saying, hey, I see this, I see it, and I want to fix it. I want to make this better. So I'm assuming you saw the fruits of that. I'm assuming after the few years, did it work in the long term?
Yeah, no, it did. Because, if you've ever been in a situation where someone's asking for your opinion and you give it, typically this is what I found to be true. You kind of give a little bit of it, right? You don't really give the whole thing. Like, you go, this is what I'm not. And then you wait to see what the response is. So if the response is warm, if its response is positive overall, then you give a little bit more, and you give a little bit more. So again, as we talk about culture, it is something that you have to live out. You have to be committed to. If you're not ready for it, don't do it, because you're faking it and it'll be found out. If you're comfortable about doing it, just be real. I guess that's the biggest thing is, I think, as a leader, we just have to be more real and transparent. We're going to be healthier because of that. And if you have this mindset that you're going to continue to grow and be a student of your craft, then just know that who you are today, tomorrow's going to be even better. So don't worry about making mistakes today, because you're going to learn from it. And it's a whole growth mindset that, oftentimes we're going to have to fail a couple of times before we finally find success. So, and that's what we want for our kids, right? We want our kids to not worry about failing. We don't want them to ever fear stepping into the ring. We want them to go for it and learn from it and know that you're going to get back up. And, that whole idea of perseverance and going through challenges and all that stuff, man, that is something that we need to help our students with, and we have to help ourselves with as well.
Love it. I've loved this conversation, Tim. I love what you're doing. And I just want to say thank you for obviously giving up your time today to hop on the podcast and for dedicating a lot of your life all these years to education and to the next generation. So wishing you nothing but the best at Los Gatos Christian School as that again grows and you guys are educating the next generation. And again, thank you so much. And if I'm ever over there, I'm going to hit you up and we're going to go do some of that fun stuff that you said to do there in Los Gatos. But thank you so much, Tim.
You bet, Mitchell. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast, and thanks for this opportunity just to share my heart with all the great educators out there that are just doing the hard work every day. It's awesome. Thank you.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Tim for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what he's doing over there at Gatos Christian School, and I'm wishing them nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And as always, I know I sound like a broken record. I'm hoping you guys can take at least one thing from today's episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. And if you're a school that's listening to this and you're struggling with how to follow up with students that are interested in attending your school, or the families reach out to you and you send them a packet or you send them some information, but you don't follow up with them anymore, I want you to reach out to us because I'd love to show you what we've built. We have fully automated the application and enrollment process for schools so that people don't fall through the cracks anymore in that process. As I've talked with more and more schools, one of the pieces they really struggle with is they get these leads and they send people the information, maybe not in the most timely manner as they should, but then they don't follow up as much as they should or don't follow up ever again. And what we have done is if somebody, let's say, is interested in your school in June and you send them a packet and they don't end up enrolling for that fall semester, we will make sure that they are reached out to by your school with some automated messages that we help create with you, that they will be in touch from your school that whole year and they will have an opportunity to enroll that next year because the system will reach out to them and say, hey, are you interested in enrolling now at this school? And we're helping you to keep those ones from falling through the cracks because we know people are not followed up with as much as they should, and we have fixed that problem for schools. So if you are having that problem currently, I'd love to show you how we can fix it pretty quickly for you and your school. And if you're a Facebook user, you need to join our private Facebook group. Great group of people in there. It's all school leaders. It's called School Success Makers. Again, private group just on Facebook for you school leaders called School Success Makers. And if you'd rather just go to the website, of course, you can go to the website, schoolsuccessmakers.com. That's schoolsuccessmakers.com. We'll be here next week with another amazing guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then.